Oh, hi. You caught me looking at my monitor, which is over there in a very precarious position. Today is the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King, as most of you know. Now, I got some brothers. They're in transit. At least one of them is in transit, and hopefully he'll get here. So we're kind of winging it, and I got the staff back there, like, juggling hatchets. That was a clip of Dr. Timothy Wright, and it was a Martin Luther King tribute in the year 2005. They were doing a celebration at Canaan Baptist Church. Now, what makes Canaan Baptist Church historically significant is the fact that it was the home church of Dr. Wyatt T. Walker, and Dr. Wyatt T. Walker was Martin's treasurer, I believe. In any event, he was one of Martin's close circle. So, and as you know, Dr. Timothy Wright passed away a couple of years, and he is historically significant. So you have a significant gospel singer in a historically significant church on Martin Luther King's birthday. And we're going to, I'm going to see if I can get this computer thing going, and I'm going to read you a couple of passages of Dr. King's speech. I'm going to kind of paraphrase it, and by then we'll roll the opening, and we'll talk about the People's Survival Program. Now, Dr. King's in Dr. King's last speech, he talked about, everybody knows I have a dream, yada yada yada. And I'm not trying to, diminish what he was saying. But he also said some things, and he talked about something happening in Memphis. And he said that if he asked Almighty God which age he would like to live in, that he would not stop in Greece. No, first it says, Martin Luther King, which age would you like to live in? He said, I'd take my mental flight by Egypt. I'd watch God's children in their magnificent trek from the dark dungeons of Egypt through, or rather across the Red Sea, through the wilderness, on toward the Promised Land. And in spite of its magnificence, I wouldn't stop there. I'd move on by Greece, take my mind to Mount Olympus. I would see Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, Euripides, and Aristophanes assembled around the Parthenon. I'd watch them around the Parthenon as they discussed the great and eternal issues of reality, but I wouldn't stop there. I'd go on even to the great heyday of the Roman Empire. I'd see developments around there through various emperors and leaders, but I wouldn't stop there. I would even come up to the day of the Renaissance and get a quick picture of all that the Renaissance did for the cultural and aesthetic life of man, but I wouldn't stop there. I'd even go by the way that man for whom I am named had his habitat. And I'd watch Martin Luther as he tacked his 95 Theses on the door of the Church of Wittenberg, but I wouldn't stop there. I would come up even to 1863, and watch a vacillating president by the name of Abraham Lincoln. His words, not mine. And that's significant because Abe Lincoln is for an Oscar. He said, and I would watch a vacillating president by the name of Abraham Lincoln finally come to the conclusion that he had to sign the Emancipation Proclamation, but he would not stop there. He'd come up to the early 30s, see a man grappling with the problems of the bankruptcy of the nation. Wouldn't stop there. Strangely enough, he turned to the Almighty and said, if you allow me to live just a few years in the second half of the 20th century, I'll be happy. That's a strange statement to make, his words, not mine, because the world is all messed up. The nation is sick, troubles in the land, confusion all around. That's a strange statement. I know somehow that only when it's dark enough, you can see the stars. When it's dark enough, you can see the stars. And I see God working in this period of the 20th century in a way that men in some strange way are responding. Something's happening in the world. The masses of people are rising up. And wherever they are assembled today, whether they are in Johannesburg, South Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, Accra, Ghana, New York City, Atlanta, Georgia, Jackson, Mississippi, or Memphis, Tennessee, the cry is always the same. We want to be free. And another reason why I'm happy to live in this period is that we have been forced to a point where we are going to have to grapple with the problems that men have been trying to grapple with through history, but the demands didn't force them to do it. Survival demands that we grapple with them. Men for years now have been talking about war and peace, but now no longer can they just talk about it. It's no longer a choice between violence and nonviolence in the world. It's nonviolence or non-existence. That's where we are today. Also, in the human rights revolution, if something isn't done and done in a hurry to bring the colored peoples of the world out of their long years of poverty, their long years of hurt and neglect, the whole world is doomed. I'm just happy that God has allowed me to live in this period to see what is unfolding. And I'm happy that he's allowed me to be in Memphis, Tennessee. Well, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I am happy that God has allowed me to live in this period. And as surely as Martin Luther King's words, he sounded a little like Malcolm in that one. As surely as Martin Luther King's words were relevant then, they were prophetic as they spoke of the future, which is now. And we're going through the same things, grappling with the same issues and have the same problems of survival. Today we're going to have my good brother Shep from the People's Survival Network on. We're going to talk about what they're doing in the community to help our brothers and sisters along. Welcome to 30 Frames a Second on the birthday, the anniversary, the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King. And we'll be inviting you to call in. So with that, hopefully the cats backstage will have my opening. They can run it whenever they want to, and we will be back. Into the fact where the victim is now the perpetrator and the perpetrator is now the victim. Mm-hmm. And that just drives me crazy. All right, we're back, and let me put my glasses on because I'm blind as a bat, but I can read without my glasses. Brother Shep is gearing up to be my guest. They're miking him up now. He ran into some trouble, so we're running a little late. We're a little off schedule. We're going to bring him on as soon as possible. While we're doing that, I just want to tell people that there is a day of outrage that is happening 4 p.m. Thursday, January 17th. That's day after tomorrow if you're watching live. January 17th, 2003 at Foley Square. That's Duane Street and Lafayette Street. And for information, jot this number down. For information, the number is 718-398-1766. They're going to be talking about justice for the Central Park 5 because they have still gotten no reparations, no apologies, no anything. They just robbed those young men of their lives, and there has been no accord given to them at all. So again, that's 4 p.m. Thursday at Foley Square, January 17, 2003, Duane and Lafayette. And for info, dial 718-398-1766. We're getting some cameras together. While we're doing that, I'm hoping that there's a medium shot on Shep. If there's not, then we're going to shoot his feet and keep going. With that, I want to thank Brother Shep for coming in here and telling us some things about the People's Survivors Program. Maybe you guys can tune up the YouTube while we're at it, and you can show that clip of YouTube. It's about 2.5 minutes long. If you can't, we'll go to Shep, and then when you're ready, you can let me know. Cool.
that puts them in our community. Chemical warfare, biological warfare. We need to understand how to combat what's being put to our community by our enemies. And yes, they are our enemies.
Hey sis, you mind telling us what's going on right here?
Well, this is the People's Survival Program. PSP, we call it the PSP, initiated by the New Black Panther Party. But we work with a coalition of other organizations like the Zulu Nation, the Black Stage, Black Spades, and other organizations to feed our people. And we know that the original Panther Party, whose brother Shep is a member of, who's also now a member of the Zulu Nation, the original Black Panther Party is the one that initiated this. But we restarted this back here in 2008 at the Harlem State Office Building. Then we started to expand out here. And not only do we feed the people, we give them medical information, and we give them, blood pressure checks and stuff like that. We have a whole list of programs that were really initiated and originated by the original Black Panther Party. So we come out here the second Friday of every month. My name is Khadija Shakur. I'm a member of the New Black Panther Party, and also a member of the People's Survival Program.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
The People's Survival Program. Free food, free clothes, free medical advice right over at the table. Get your blood pressure taken. Don't wait to have that stroke before you realize you need to take care of yourself. Go there and get that blood pressure taken care of so you can know what you got to do. If you're hungry, get online, get a tray, get something to eat. If you're not, make a donation right here. Your donations go right back to the community. What's the name of this station? Zulu!
All right, that was excellent. Brother Shep, my brother.
Happy King Day.
Yeah, happy Martin Luther King Day.
Yes.
It seems like you holding up the past traditions quite well. The Panthers 10-point program, you guys are out there recreating history. How did the People's Survival Program come about?
Basically, it's never really stopped, from when the party had initiated it back in the late 60s through the 70s. When the Panther Party officially ended in 1980, formations throughout the country still continued to do that work, whether it was the liberation schools, the free medical clinics, and of course the free food, clothes, and so forth programs that we had initiated then. They continued. In New York City, we had basically began revisiting these programs again, actually in the mid-90s when the Black Panther Collective was formulated. There was a group called Adam that was created by a brother named Brother Shine, who initially had started.
Yeah.
Okay, Brother Shine had started feeding people, and then he asked for us to join him, and we did that. And so, they had been sporadic, but this recent People's Survival Program has been more consistent. We've been actually functioning, again, as the sister said on the tape, since 2008. And we've spread now throughout the country, under this formation itself. We're opening up People's Survival Programs in Los Angeles, in Miami, in Chicago. One just recently started in Detroit. So we're spreading because there's a need for it in our communities, which are still underserved, and particularly in the aftermath of the natural disasters that have just recently hit this area. Talking about Hurricane Sandy, we've been able to take what we've been doing and put it in vehicles and in trucks and so forth, and just go out to Coney Island, to Red Hook, and to Far Rockaway, which we're still doing work there now. The government has left basically from those areas, but there's still a need out there. Some people still don't have power. Some people still don't have real good running water. There's a question of mold in the areas. So there's a lot of things that still need to be addressed that the government is not doing, And that's what the People Survival Program was always about people being self-reliant and self-sufficient and not depending upon the government to do anything for them, because we can do for ourselves. And we can do a better job at it by doing ourselves.
Right. Now, some parts of Staten Island was a bit more Republican-leaning and more, well, more affluent, you know, more conservative, a more conservative political bent. But when you look at communities like Coney Island is not a wealthy community by any stretch of the imagination. It's quite, you know, it's a struggling community with people who struggle. And that's compounded by the fact that New York is now the richest city in America, and real estate prices are just like going through the roof. So a lot of people who were hit at Coney Island have no other options other than, you know, a people's survival type program. As a matter of fact, when they talk about Sandy, they talk about Staten Island and they talk about New Jersey. But I don't really hear them, you know, maybe it's just me, but I don't hear the you know, the desperate,
Right.
you know.
You know, one of the things we found interesting when we first hit the ground out there is, you know, looking for, you know, disaster, you know, buildings that had gotten destroyed and so forth. And what we really discovered was that a lot of those buildings in our communities, in the Black and Latino communities, had already been destroyed.
Right.
You know, so it was like, well, this didn't happen during the hurricane. This was left that way.
Right.
And particularly if you look at certain areas in Coney Island and definitely in Far Rockaway, this whole gentrification thing is going on. You talk about the real estate, where they want to build these beachfront condos and developments that are not for our people.
Right.
So our people being really forced out of some of those areas so they can build these extravagant, high rent district areas. You know, they didn't know that they were going to get hit like they did.
Right.
So now they're having second thoughts. That's what you hear now, like, oh, we need to rethink about beachfront properties now. You know, but our people were suffering long before that, and it just intensified when this happened.
And the rents are so exorbitant in this city that for those people who live day to day, check to check, those people who are working, not making a great deal of money, relocating in this city is all but impossible.
Right.
Where do you get your supplies from? Now you guys are handing out coats. You're getting food. I mean, there's a certain amount of hustling you have to do in order to like just get the supplies in so that you can give it out. You know, obviously we see you like working hard in the streets, giving out clothes, giving out food, interacting with the people. But it has to be like a full-time gig, just trying to get this stuff in so that you can hand it out. How
well, we everything we have comes from the community itself. You know, again, we don't ask the government for anything. Although I will say that when we went to Coney Island, we did liberate supplies from FEMA. We had some contacts there. We were able to get 2 truckloads, via the Parks Department. Because people that were actually running that site, they weren't going into our communities to give it out. So our people had to travel 30, 20 blocks to stand on a long line in this parking lot to get their supplies. And that's not how we function. We go right into the community. So they said, well, whatever you need, we'll give it to you. You know, we talked to one of the city council persons there. He said, oh, anything I can do, we can help. We want everything. So he couldn't go back on that. So we loaded up everything we could, you know, a lot of water, a lot of blankets, a lot of supplies, and we went into the projects and we gave it out. You know, but other than that, you know, in terms of liberating things, we get donations from our community. Whether it's certain restaurants in the communities that donate food, because we serve hot food. You know, we don't give out the rations that we're giving out all throughout. You know, so we, you know, have real home cooked food, you know, mac and cheese, collard greens, baked chicken, fried chicken, you know, curry goat, you name it. That's what we serve. So the people know it's about love, because when they get on our lines, they say, oh, wow, this is real food. And that's what we tell them. You know, so that's how we function with that. But again, everything comes from the community. And we feel that that's the way it should be, that we should support ourselves. And then we teach people how they can do that themselves in their own communities. So it's not us just traveling all throughout, you know, the 5 boroughs to help, but for people to see what we do and just duplicate that, because it can be done everywhere. That's what the original survival programs were about in the Panther Party, about the community running those programs after we set them up.
Now, what you're doing has a few nuanced, little nuances to it that the original breakfast program of the Black Panther Party didn't have, because the Black Panther Party at that time was a self-contained organization, so it was easier, you know, it would seem to be easier to institute certain programs, certain initiatives under one program.
Correct.
You know, and you have managed to bring together different people from different organizations, different generations, which is very difficult. I mean, we talk about things like supporting black businesses, and we talk about things like education, you know, and we talk about following Malcolm and following Elijah and yada 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 yada. But we seem to have a difficult time, and the streets are very perceptive. They, I mean, they see you, you know, it's like having children, you know, it's like living with the tape recorder on. They see what you do and how you do it. And one of the biggest things that hold us back is the fact that so many activist groups, for lack of a better term, have a tremendous amount of difficulty setting aside their differences and working together to improve our situation. How did you guys come together? You know, because you got the new Black Panther Party, and you know, I mean, they cuss them out all over cable TV. You know, you got Zulu Nation, and when you think of the word Zulu Nation, certainly they have always been, you know, in tune with the people. But you think of them as an institution that revolves around art and culture and things like that. You know, the Black Panther Party is a guiding light, but even that became splintered in philosophies. You know, some people said, well, you know, this is a socialist program. Some people said this is a black liberation program. You know, you had Black Panthers in Chicago and Oakland and New York, so there were cultural differences, almost what white folks would call tribal differences. You know, and you guys have been able to come together in such a way as to literally work together for a positive thing, without a lot of fanfare, without a lot of, you know, big me, little you type stuff. How did you guys come together? How did you pull that off?
You know, having been in the original Black Panther Party myself here in New York, I know exactly what you're talking about. You know, in terms of having an organization that's doing that under its own ideology. Okay. We found that over the years, you know, just looking at those mistakes that were made then, you know, whether it was in the Panther Party or the Young Lords and so forth, and what you alluded to, you know, in terms of just our organizations working together, there's always something that seems to get in the way. So what we came up with, and this actually worked perfectly at this point, is we say we're not a coalition. Okay, we're not a collective, so to speak, but we're a formation of organizations. All right. Every organization can, you know, without, you know, wear their colors, like you probably saw in the clip, people who had their colors on, which actually helped us when we went into different neighborhoods, because the streets, like you said, they talk.
Right. You can't hide them. I never think you hide from the streets.
So when young people see us come in, they say, wow, the Black Spades, I heard about them way back in the day. And y'all still here, they're still around, and wow, you know, Zulu Nation, or, you know, Malcolm X Commemoration Committee, or Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, you know, all these groups are out there handing out their literature, setting up their tables, but they're all under the one banner of the People's Survival Program. Because it's one thing that no organization that works with us, or even those who don't, can deny, is that our people need to have these skills and all these necessary tools and vehicles within their community to survive.
Right.
Because the epidemics that are going on in our community haven't changed. They've actually gotten worse.
Right.
You know, I just recently had a meeting with doctors.
Excellent.
Okay, at Montefiore Medical Clinic. We're going to do a program there on February 12th, and I'll make sure you get all that information to let people know, where we have people who worked in the medical cadres testing people for tuberculosis, testing for sickle cell, lead poisoning, all the things that we did in New York City under those medical cadres.
Right.
You know, in our communities, we're going to teach the doctors what we used to do and how we did it.
Right.
Okay, it's dealing with basically their family and community medicine rounds. So they're going to all be there. So we can share that information with them and build and bring them hopefully into the People's Survival Program to further develop our medical community-based programs. So we're really looking forward to that. But again, it's the substance of it. You know, I'm a doctor, I deal with community medicine. Well, it only behooves me to learn about what other people did and continue that.
Right.
And so there's no ideology involved in it. It's about serving our people. And we say we serve the people, body and soul.
Now that's a very big thing, because like I say, there are a lot of activists who have been in the activizing business for a long time, decades, and their activism a lot of times comes, it ends up being preaching at people instead of talking to people, being above the people instead of being with the people. Constantly asking for stuff from the people to advance their own agendas, you know. And the agendas might be well-meaning, you know, but you're asking people who have nothing and you're not bringing anything to them. So in their minds, it's just, you're just somebody else, you know, like, you know, you're just another kind of carrion, you know, creature. You're like, well, you know, I'm not a vulture, I'm a hyena, but, you know, and possibly, and I observed this with the new Black Panther Party, that a lot of the members of the new Black Panther Party were like people from the community, people who like cried together, and you know, at the root of it was people of the people. At the root of it was, you know, they put on the new Black Panther Party uniforms, and they were very active in the community, and people would see this. But at the root of who they were, and which is why a guy like me would gravitate toward them. Like I say, I didn't get my my stuff from, you know, reading Miles' Red Book. I got my stuff from, you know, people loaning me food stamps and watching my children, and you know, and they go through a lot of that same thing. They have to bail their children out of jail, and they have to take up funeral collections, and they borrow to survive. So when you're of the people, it's a different mindset than when you think that you are above the people and some sort of designated leader.
And, you know, that's very important, because our whole thing, you know, in terms of some of us, you know, we call ourselves veterans of the party, you know, with the new Panthers, just trying to instill upon them the importance of having community programs, because that's your base. That's what kept us going as far as we did, because when the government really started attacking, the people were the ones that protected us. Okay, when our people had to go underground and the government was looking for them, it was the old grandmothers who had been working in the kitchens that were protecting us. You know, going all the way back through like slavery. When, you know, escaped slaves were there, who protected them? It was the community. So we tell people that, and we see this on the lines when we're there. We don't go there and talk down to them. Okay, we're providing a service to them. And yes, we give them information about what's going on, which is very important. But it's related to that survival, and we get that respect from those in the community who we used to call the lumpen proletariat. Those who don't have anything. So we purposely will find locations, like when we do Harlem, we're right on Lexington. right between 125th and 124th Street.
Oh, cool, cool.
You know, which is supposedly the worst area in Harlem. You know,
right.
because you have the detox place there, and you have the homeless shelter over there.
Right.
You have the buses from Rikers Island that drop people off right there.
Right.
So, you know, the police constantly harass people there except when we're there.
Right.
And so when we're there, you know, you'll see people who basically have medical problems and difficulties, and they'll be like, no, we don't do that on this line. Everyone stay in order. Everyone keep the line straight.
Right.
There's no jumping here.
Right.
Okay, this is our program.
Right.
You know, and that, you know, feeling that it's yours is what we want to, you know, people to embrace. That this is what it's about. It's about us. So then we get that love, okay, that comes back and forth between each other, you know, on that line when we're giving out those clothes or whatever. You know, for people who say, oh, they're the dregs of the world, you know, we don't need to deal with them. But they're not. These are our people, and we love them. And so we're going to care, and we're going to teach them what to do. You know, one of the things that we talk about out there, like I was saying, we do speak out there, but it's about things that they need to know. Like most people don't know that the largest earthquake fault in Harlem is on 125th Street. You know, and it's like, well, what are y'all going to do if an earthquake hits here? We had the hurricane. That's next. There hasn't been one in a while.
Toxic materials in Harlem.
Yes, all of those things.
Right.
But you know, just having the like we teach disaster preparedness. We've been doing that long before there was a Sandy. You know, do you have water in your house? Do you have your go bags? Do you have? What do you do if the earthquake does happen? The buildings come down. Do you know how to get away? Do you know where to go? Are you going to wait for FEMA to come and tell you what to do? So like people need to learn these skills: CPR, first aid. We talked about the blood pressure checking that you saw in the clip. You know, again, and I say that all the time, don't wait, because we live in a high stress lifestyle, being in the suppressive society that we're in. And don't carry your baby up the steps and then you get a stroke. What's going to happen? Not only you get injured, but the child can get injured. So go get that testing and get yourself taken care of beforehand. So, you know, self-defense, you know, we deal with that. We have a program coming up in March. Called the Masters of the Comedic Martial Arts. So we're going to honor our masters from through the years who have taught self-defense in the communities, and just deal with that whole aspect. So like there's a lot, all these things are about survival. These are things that our people need as tools to make it from day to day. You know, whether it's the food, the clothes, the medical, whatever it is, that's what we provide.
Now, I like to refer to a changed paradigm, if you will, specifically in the United States. It's big in New York because New York has become a very multicultural hub anyway, you know. But in the United States, there is a changed demographic. And a lot of people my age, I'm 61, who were used to the whole the whole war of wills, if you will, to be predominantly black and white. And now I find that we are not just forced to survive in an atmosphere that is still dominated by white supremacy, but we also have to compete with cultures coming from other places, and they are determined to succeed in America. And not only are we not prepared for survival, we have not prepared ourselves educationally, artistically, culturally, in any aspect to seek out power and bring it home. You know, even when we achieve some sort of power, it seems to be some sort of step and fetch it approach to power, where, you know, we just want to be slaves with a better payday, you know, as opposed to wielding power to, you know, to be a force in not only our own communities and the United States, but a force globally, as other nations are trying to do. I mean, the Chinese are not joking. They're trying to make global moves, you know, whether they're in China or whether they're in Chinatown. You know, they are big on educating their children, trying to make to become a force, you know, to be reckoned with.
You know, one of the things with that, and we're right on line with that, totally. Most people, a lot of people don't know the history, even with the original Black Panther Party, that there were Panthers that formulated all throughout the planet. You know, there were in Malaysia there was a Panther Party, in India, in England. There's even one in Israel that took up revolutionary formations and looked at that whole example that we were establishing. South Africa, I mean, different areas that happened back then. One of the things that really gravitated me towards the Zulu Nation is that it was international in scope. You know, utilizing hip hop as the vehicle to do it, but we have chapters in Zulu all throughout the world. You know, even the places I just mentioned. You know, we have a whole building that's in Malaysia. You know, that falls underneath the guys of the Universal Zulu Nation, and folks came here, like you mentioned, China. Okay, you know, we've started a PSP in Korea. You know, people came here for hip hop and they saw what we did, and now they're doing that. Same thing in Japan. You know, when they had their tsunami, okay, our Zulu chapter went into operation and began, you know, replicating the whole PSP, the Short for People Survival Program there. So looking at that whole international thing, and Malcolm talked about it, that our struggle has to be international, you know, particularly when we talk about our political prisoners and prisoners of war. You know, they don't have anywhere to go.
And Huey came out of jail, and he studied law, and many of the things that he did was so grounded in law. It was like meticulous execution. I heard Bobby Seale talk about the early days, and he talked about how little Bobby Hemmett, they made him go back to school and whatnot because they understood that, irrespective of what J. Edgar said, that this was about moving forward in mind and spirit as well as everything else. You know. And
so, you know, with that, we look at the whole international scope itself, and using culture as a weapon for liberation and
culture
change.
Is a weapon for
liberation.
And
so when we look at the hip hop, I mean, real hip hop. I'm not talking about the nonsense that's on the radio that we hear. There's 12, you know, cycles played over and over again.
Well, that's a weapon.
I'm talking about real hip hop. I'm talking about from the streets.
Well, that's real hip hop
with
too,
all the elements.
It's used as a weapon.
Against us.
It serves two purposes.
Well, that's rap. We make a distinction between rap, which we say a phrase on recording artists pretending. It's not real hip hop. Okay, but with us, being able to use culture as a weapon, we're about to embark on Hip Hop for Humanity tour, where we're looking at, we're going to start out in Venezuela, in the Afro-Venezuelan community. Okay, have our artists here go there, perform in the traditional African Venezuelan communities, and then vice versa. They'll come here and perform. Following that, we're going to do Cuba. Then we're going to do Angola. Okay, we're going to do Brazil. So all these countries that I mentioned, they have extreme social problems that we can help with. So what you get is, you know, people talk about youth all the time. The youth are what's going to be moving this whole project. You know, using culture as a weapon, but then looking at things like, I spoke to some brothers and sisters from Caracas. Okay, and they simple things like they don't have recorders to record their meetings. We all know about Cuba. They don't have with the blockade. They don't have computers. They don't have all these things. So you have a lot of young people that want to get involved globally and want to work with young people here, but the technology is not really there. So we can do that. We can provide that. And so that's what we're using that culture as a weapon to do that.
There's a lot of power and a lot of opportunity globally. World music, although America is very snotty, and we tend to think of America as, we who are born and raised and live in America for any length of time start to believe our own hype that America is the beginning and the end of the universe.
You can see it on the commercials that come out now. I didn't mention them by name, but the so-called icons of hip hop. You know, with the vodka commercials and
Right.
you know, this commercial they want to be like,
Right.
you know, European instead of what they are.
But then the biggest selling, the most viewed anyway, video on YouTube is that guy's side with Gangnam Style, the Asian guy dancing.
Right.
I mean, they're looking at you know, well over 1 billion hits. It's unprecedented.
But what goes back into the community?
Well, I'm just talking about
No, I'm just
opportunity.
putting that question out.
I'm just talking about a different way to look at it. I'm
Right.
not talking about what they give back or if they're going to give back. I don't expect that. I expect that from us.
Right.
The only point I'm making, even an artist like Shakira, I mean, as many things as Shakira has done, both in the Latin American genre and the English genre, I think the thing that she did that had the most hits was the thing that revolved around the African Olympic thing that went down. They did a video of that. She must have 300-400 million hits, you know, because there is a global community,
Exactly, right.
you know, of artists, and it seems as though tuning into that global, if we can just we can just see the whole world and not just this section that they tell us, you know, we have to do this and we have to do that if we want to be a part of them, because, you know, white daddy's love is the end all of existence. You know, it seems to be so much opportunity if we could just expand our
Right.
you know, the way we.
And you're
we,
right.
we think.
Everyone else is on tune with that. I mean, you can go to somewhere and people will speak your language, their language, and 2 other languages. Where
Right, right.
the arrogance here is,
Right.
oh, you have to speak English.
Right, right.
You know, so.
Oh, that's my young lady there. That's speaking of young people who are out to get it done. That's Ciara. She works with us. She's been doing some really good things in the street video wise.
Okay.
Now we were talking about doing for self, and you spoke of the incredible needs that our community has. I mean, any problem that the white community or the greater community, no, that's not the right word, the white community,
Dominant.
the dominating community,
Right.
has, our problems seem to be 2 to 3 times greater, and we're also the last ones to get those problems addressed. And we were talking before about how difficult it was to get people to like put down their genocidal sword, you know, and come together, you know, and focus on our community and the things that would make us stronger. There's a lot of opportunity in our schools. We live in a time where technology is cheaper than it's ever been, you know. I'm using this Amazon thing,
Right.
but they have things like from little phone companies, tablets and whatnot that you can get online. You get those things for less than $100, you know, and Wi-Fi the buildings. But there doesn't seem to be a big push toward working within our communities the way other communities work within theirs. It is no coincidence that the richest community, and this is their statistics, not mine. I'm not making this up, you know. But the wealthiest, according to recent statistics, and I forget which ones, I looked it up. I got them from Yahoo News. The wealthiest community in America is the Jewish community, and the second richest community is the Sikh community, according to them. We're like dead last in everything except prison population and foster care. You know, we leading in that. And one of the biggest reasons why they say that the Jewish population does so well is because they really make a tremendous effort. First of all, to raise their children with the expectation that they will do better than, I mean, they're in their minds first and foremost. They take great pride in making sure that they have developed educational and cultural institutions, you know. We don't seem to do that. And they don't have, and there's one thing that I always wondered about. Black people, they're always telling them, you're playing the race card, you know. But I've never heard anyone say that the Jewish community was playing the Semite card, you know. So we have slavery. We have slavery in the mind, in that we are trying so hard to assimilate that we do not try to compete. I like to say the only time we are even taught to compete as black people is in sports, you know. Everything else, we just looking for a job, looking to fit in, and every other culture is looking to excel.
I think a lot of it is, you know, first and foremost, understanding that as a people we're not monolithic.
Right.
Okay, that's the first thing. And in actuality, the communities you mentioned, they're not really monolithic either.
Right.
Okay. You know, a lot of people say, oh, look, you hear that all the time in our community. Oh, well, you know, all the Puerto Ricans always stick together, and these always stick.
No,
it's not true.
No.
You know, but outside of that, I think the key point that you made in terms of, it's our children.
Right.
You know, how do we raise them?
Right.
And what are all the different components that are involved in that?
Right.
For instance, if you have, they talked a lot about it, let's say maybe 10 years ago, about the crisis in teenage pregnancies.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So if you have a young mother who did not get her education, is not able maybe to read that well, how is she going to teach her child how to do that?
Right.
You know, I was fortunate. My mother taught me how to read before I even went into school.
Right. Right.
You know.
Well, mine too.
Yeah.
Mine
you know,
too.
and so
Mine
that whole education priority that came up with, you know, I'm close to your age too, a little bit younger than you, but you know,
a lot of people a little bit younger than me.
Yeah, I'll be 59 this year, so I'm right behind you. But it's that's why we do the schools, the liberation schools, what we call them, or you know, the cultural education schools, so that we can teach our children to do that.
Again,
and just one more point. Going back to the Black Panther Party. We had to read 3 hours every day.
Right.
Outside of all the other things we had to do all day long, you know, we had to read. And if you couldn't read, you had to learn how to read. So if I was with my sister, she had problems reading, I had to teach her so she could study and be able to read the newspaper before she sold it and be able to politically analyze what was going on currently throughout the world. So we knew the importance of that. Okay, in the communities now, and you mentioned the technology, that can be a hazard as well, because if you become dependent upon it, then you're not doing that research. You're not going to the library, which they're trying to make obsolete, or books, which they're trying to get rid of. You know, I saw on the train the other day, like, oh, you know, read this book. It has an app now. You can plug it into your head and listen to the book as opposed to reading the book. You know, so it's like, you know, like I tell young people, I said, don't depend on Google. I said, Google doesn't have all the information. Somebody put that information there, and they did the research. So you can find more information from that. And as we say, intelligence, you know, in terms of information is intelligence. If you don't have that, then you're at a disadvantage to start with. But we need to solidify our community, put our own institutions that we control in our community, which is what I think you're talking about with these other communities.
See,
they control their institutions.
I kind of mix my metaphors up a little bit, and we're starting to run out of time. Okay. Everything you said, there's a phrase: to whom much is given, much is expected, and much of the things that you are talking about even now are people-to-people type efforts. They are literally the proletariat raising up the proletariat. But as you said, we are not monolithic, and some of us are doing quite well. And it seems that the only thing that, well, no, not the only thing, but a lot of our people who have become blessed or fortunate or however you say, spend a lot of times lecturing and judging and not as much time facilitating or reaching back into the ocean to pull somebody to shore.
Right.
And when I talk about a lot of the schools and the way they operate, even a lot of the theater groups and whatnot, well, keeping the National Black Theater alive is not the responsibility of welfare mothers, but it is the responsibility of a black middle class who has been woefully negligent in supporting their own culture,
right.
you know. And as I said, to whom much is given, much is expected. I really, really appreciate the effort that you guys are making, you know. And I don't have a right to, like, you know, demand that someone does something, you know, but it is curious. And I do believe that there is a glorious opportunity that is being missed because we are so self-absorbed when we get $2 over lunch money, like my mother said.
But one thing I will say, and I know we're getting close to closing, when you set examples out, you get results.
Right.
And, you know, again, you know, people see us out in the streets,
Right.
and like on this show, they hear about what we're doing, and they want to duplicate and replicate that. You come and show us how to do this, and like, well, you know, so like. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, so we might be gone. Yeah, that's what it said. Yeah, I didn't hear any music. You didn't pipe anything. All right, cool.
But